The church bells rang like memories I'd tried to forget. 11 years is a long time to disappear long enough for people to turn your absence into a story. No one expected me to show up that day. Not at her wedding. Not after what happened. The moment I stepped through the chapel doors, every head turned, a dozen faces frozen between confusion and disbelief. Some recognized the shape of my face but couldn't place it. Others whispered, "Is that?" but didn't dare finish the sentence. I walked slowly down the aisle, sunlight spilling through stained glass, painting the floor in fractured color red, gold, blue, regret. My sister stood at the altar, veil lifted, smile bright enough to hide everything she'd done. The same smile she wore the day she told the world I ruined her life. She didn't recognize me at first, or maybe she didn't want to. When I stopped halfway down the aisle, she froze. The crowd fell silent. Even the priest hesitated mid-blessing. "Sorry I'm late," I said softly. The traffic between guilt and forgiveness is heavier than I remembered. Her face went pale. She whispered something to her husband, who glanced my way, confused. He didn't know me. No one really did not anymore. But they were about to. I reached into my coat pocket, fingers brushing the envelope I'd carried for 11 years, the one that held the truth they'd buried. And, for the first time since that night, I smiled. "I came to wish you happiness," I said, but I thought it might be better if we started with honesty. The priest lowered his book. The room held its breath. Even the bells outside seemed to stop ringing. Because everyone knew something they didn't, and I was finally ready to tell them. Before everything went wrong, my sister Lily was my favorite person in the world. We were born 3 years apart, but we grew up like twins, two halves of one secret. When we were kids, she used to steal my hoodies, eat the marshmallows from my cereal, and swear she'd pay me back in laughter. And she did for years. Her laughter was the soundtrack of my childhood. We grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and every rumor traveled faster than the mail. Our parents ran a modest grocery store at the corner of Maple and 3rd. It smelled like oranges, detergent, and home. Lily would help at the counter, smiling at every customer, turning strangers into friends. I handled the stockroom, carrying boxes too heavy for my age, but pretending I was strong. We were a team. At night, after closing, we'd sit on the roof and talk about dreams. She wanted to be a journalist, the kind who tells the truth when everyone else is scared to. I wanted to be an engineer, the kind who fixes things that shouldn't break. It's funny how both of us ended up doing the opposite. Our bond was simple until the day truth became dangerous. I remember it vividly, the smell of burnt toast, Dad shouting in the kitchen, Lily's voice trembling behind her bedroom door. She was 17, I was 20, and everything we thought we knew about family started to fall apart. That night, she came to me crying, mascara smeared. "You promise you won't tell anyone," she whispered. "Always," I said. She handed me a folded letter, shaking hands, eyes red. "It's from him," she said. I didn't have to ask who him was. Her boyfriend older, charming, and wrong in every possible way. The letter was full of promises and apologies, the kind of words that sound like love until they turn into lies. She was scared. He'd gotten her into trouble, not the kind you can fix with an apology or a bouquet. For days, we hid it. I drove her to appointments, made excuses to our parents, told everyone she was studying late. But secrets are like smoke, they find a way out. One afternoon, Dad found the letter. Everything exploded. Yelling, crying, silence. In the chaos, someone had to take the blame, and that someone was me. I told them I was the one who wrote it, that I was protecting her. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because I was her brother. Maybe because I thought truth could wait until the storm passed. But storms don't wait. They destroy everything in their path, and mine took 11 years to end. Dad threw me out that night. No explanation. No chance to defend myself, just a slammed door and a sentence that would haunt me. "You're no longer my son." Lily tried to stop him. I still remember her crying at the doorway, barefoot on the cold tiles. "Please, Dad, it's not him." But he wouldn't listen. I walked away with one suitcase and a secret I promised never to break. The next day, I left town. No goodbye, no letter, no closure, just distance. I started over in another city working nights at a garage, sleeping in a room so small it felt like a closet. Every paycheck, I sent money home anonymously, not out of guilt, out of habit. Lily was all I thought about. I followed her life through fragments, social media posts, newspaper clippings, rumors from old neighbors. She became a journalist, just like she said she would. The irony wasn't lost on me. Years passed, and every year the silence between us grew louder. I watched her career rise, photos of her winning awards, shaking hands with politicians, smiling under headlines that read "Truth Seeker." I wanted to believe she remembered me, that she told herself, he didn't deserve what happened. But she didn't. When she got engaged, the news came through an article. The headline read, "Journalist Lily Marlowe to marry tech entrepreneur in spring." No mention of the brother who vanished. No trace of the scandal that started it all. Then one day, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, an invitation. Her wedding, the date, the venue, the gold lettering spelling out a last name I didn't recognize. And a single handwritten line at the bottom. "If you ever wanted to fix things, now's your chance." I must have read it 100 times. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I realized it was her handwriting. It took me 3 days to decide. 3 nights of staring at that invitation like it was a map back to a place I no longer belonged. When the morning came, I didn't pack much. Just a suit, the invitation, and the letter I'd kept all these years, the one that started it all. I told myself I wasn't going for revenge. I was going for truth. But revenge and truth are cousins. They often show up to the same event dressed differently. As the bus pulled into my hometown, everything looked smaller. The store was gone, replaced by a pharmacy. The old park had a new fountain. The world had moved on without me. But memory doesn't move on. It waits. When I stood outside that church, invitation in hand, I wasn't the same boy who'd left. I was a man with nothing left to lose except the truth. The bells started ringing. Guests filed in, dressed in colors that shimmered under the morning light. Laughter, perfume, old songs. And there she was, Lily, standing by the altar, radiant, confident, untouchable. Her eyes scanned the crowd, looking for someone she didn't know was already watching her. For a moment, I almost turned back, almost let the past stay buried. But then I remembered that night, her tears, her fear, the promise I made. Always, I had said. So I walked in, one step for every year lost. And when she finally saw me, the look on her face told me everything she hadn't expected me to survive the story she wrote about me. "You wanted truth, Lily," I whispered as I reached the aisle. "Let's give them some. Truth doesn't shatter all at once. It cracks slowly in whispers, half glances, and what people choose not to say." After Dad kicked me out that night, Lily came running down the street barefoot. Rain hammered the pavement. Lightning cut through the sky like judgment itself. She caught my sleeve, crying. "You didn't have to do that. I could have told them." And then what I said, voice shaking. "You'd lose everything. He'd ruin you. You lost everything instead." I smiled bitterly. Then one of us still has a chance to be happy. She broke down in my arms, begging me to come back, but I knew Dad wouldn't open that door again. His pride locked it long before I left. I still remember the look in her eyes, the kind that says thank you and I'm sorry at the same time. And then she whispered the words that would haunt me for over a decade. "I'll fix it someday, I promise." The next morning, the rumor had already spread. Small towns don't need truth, they need stories. And the story they told was simple. The Marlowe boy had a secret with his own sister. Lily never said those words. She didn't have to. Silence is its own kind of confession when people are looking for scandal. Within a week, my name was poison. Whispers followed me to every store, every gas station, every corner. Neighbors stopped waving. Even the priest stopped shaking my hand. Mom tried to mediate, but she was too sick. Her heart condition made stress dangerous. And Dad, he just worked longer hours, building a wall of silence around himself. I packed my things, left quietly, and never looked back. The first few years were survival. I slept in hostels, worked night shifts, saved every cent. There were nights when I'd dream of her of home and wake up crying without knowing why. But time has a cruel way of healing only the surface. Underneath, the wound stays fresh. Years later, I heard Mom had passed away. No one called me. I found out from a mutual friend on Facebook. Her obituary didn't mention me, just loving husband and daughter. That hurt more than any exile, not being hated but being erased. I threw myself into work after that, started as a mechanic, studied at night, built a career designing hybrid engines. Work was safe. Machines didn't lie. They broke, predictably, humans didn't. But the world is small when regret is your shadow. One evening, at a corporate dinner in the city, I saw a familiar face across the room. Lily, older now, sharper, but unmistakably her. She didn't see me or pretended not to. Her laughter was polished now, practiced for microphones and interviews. I overheard someone mention her name with admiration. "That's Lily Marlowe, right, the journalist who exposed that charity fraud. Yeah, she's fearless, writes like she's allergic to lies." I almost laughed out loud. Fearless, allergic to lies. I left before dessert, walked 10 blocks in the rain, and realized I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just tired of waiting for her to remember me. The years rolled on. I bought a small apartment, built a routine, convinced myself I'd moved on. But you can't bury the past when it keeps mailing you reminders. One morning, a message arrived in my inbox. No subject, no sender, just one line. "She's getting married." Attached was a link to a news article, her engagement. She looked radiant, glowing, untouchable, and standing beside her was a man whose smile was made of ambition. Under the photo was a quote from her. "Truth is the foundation of every strong family." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I laughed. Because nothing in this world lies as beautifully as irony. I didn't respond to the message, but I knew who had sent it. Her fiancé, Daniel West, the man she was about to marry. He was the same man who'd written that letter 11 years ago. The letter that ruined everything. For weeks, I couldn't breathe without tasting the past. I kept seeing her crying in my memory, her words looping like a curse. "I'll fix it someday." So when the wedding invitation arrived, handwritten by her, I didn't hesitate this time. Maybe this was someday. Maybe she was finally ready to keep her promise. The morning of the wedding felt unreal. The same town, same streets, same faces, older, colder, less forgiving. I stopped by the grocery store that used to be ours. The new owner didn't know my name. Inside the church, every sound echoed like judgment, laughter, whispers, prayers. And then I saw her again, Lily in a white dress that glowed like it had forgiven everything. But forgiveness without truth is just denial with better lighting. When I walked down the aisle, I caught her eyes. She froze, the way guilt freezes when it's been hiding too long. Her fiancé turned, puzzled. The crowd murmured. And I smiled, because for the first time in 11 years, I wasn't the ghost in the story. I was the author walking back into his own narrative. I stopped halfway, close enough for her to hear me, but far enough that she couldn't run. "You look beautiful," I said quietly, "just like Mom did." She flinched. "You shouldn't be here. Neither should half the lies we built this family on." Her groom frowned. "What's going on?" She didn't answer. I took the letter out of my coat, the one she'd given me that night. "Do you remember this?" She went pale. "Where did you get that?" "You gave it to me," I said, "the night I took the blame." Gasps rippled through the audience. The priest looked lost. "You told me you'd fix it. 11 years later, here we are, and I'm still the villain in your story." "Please," she whispered, "not here." "Funny," I said softly. "That's what you said when the truth first showed up." Her fiancé stepped forward, tense. "What's he talking about?" "Lily." Her silence said everything. "You never told him, did you?" I asked. "That you lied to protect the man who ruined your life and then married him." The color drained from her face. Her fiancé looked between us, realization dawning like thunder. "You mean?" "Yes," I said. "She married her own mistake." The crowd erupted whispers, gasps, confusion. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough on its own. Lily stepped back, shaking. "You don't understand," she stammered. "I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything." "You already did," I said softly. "You lost me." The priest closed his book. No one knew whether to stay or leave. I turned to the audience, calm. "You can keep the wedding, but this story, it belongs to me again." Then I walked out, the church doors closing behind me like punctuation. Outside, the sky broke open a sudden storm, cold and cleansing. Rain soaked the invitation in my hand until the ink bled into nothing. For the first time in years, I wasn't running from the past. I was walking through it. "You said you'd fix it," I whispered to the rain. "You finally did." The sound of the rain outside blended with the chaos inside the church. It was no longer a wedding. It was a battlefield. Gasps became whispers. Whispers became accusations. And in the middle of it all stood my sister white dress, red eyes, trembling hands clutching the bouquet like a weapon made of guilt. Her groom stared at her, his jaw tight. "Is it true?" She didn't answer, and sometimes silence is the loudest confession of all. I could have walked away right then. I should have, but I didn't. Because part of me, the brother she once trusted, still wanted to protect her, even after everything. "Lily," I said softly, "you can still tell them the truth." She turned toward me, eyes glassy, makeup streaked like tears of ink. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They'll destroy me." "They already did," I replied. "You just don't know it yet." The priest cleared his throat, trying to regain order. "Perhaps we should." But the groom cut him off. "No, we're not continuing until I know the truth." His voice cracked through the silence like thunder. Guests murmured, cameras still rolling. Someone live streaming whispered, "Keep filming." And suddenly, the truth was no longer ours, it was everyone's. I could feel 100 eyes on me, judging, guessing, feeding. Lily looked around desperately, like a trapped bird searching for an open window. "It wasn't supposed to go like this," she whispered. "Neither was my life," I said quietly. Her groom Daniel turned to me. "You're saying I wrote that letter?" I nodded. 11 years ago, you remember, you were 24, she was 17, you called it love, the law didn't. The crowd erupted again. Someone shouted, "Is this true?" Another voice hissed, "Oh my God." Daniel's face drained of color. He looked at her, the woman he was seconds away from marrying, as though seeing her for the first time. You told me your brother disappeared because of drugs, he said, voice shaking. I had to, she cried. I couldn't let everyone know. That you lied, I said. It was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion, every lie, every half-truth, every silence collapsing into one another. Dad was sitting in the front pew, frozen, his hand gripping the edge of the bench until his knuckles went white. When our eyes met, I didn't see anger. I saw something worse, realization. The kind that comes too late. Lily dropped the bouquet, white roses scattered across the floor, petals crushed beneath heels and rainwater dripping from guests' coats. Her veil slipped off, caught on her shoulder like a ghost refusing to leave. Please, she whispered, turning to me. Please stop. I did, I said, for 11 years. Security moved closer, unsure what to do. The priest stepped aside. No one dared touch me. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired, so tired I could feel my bones ache under the weight of her secrets. I turned toward the crowd, voice calm but steady. You all heard rumors back then, I said. You all chose to believe the worst because it was easier than asking questions. You turned my silence into guilt and her fear into virtue, and now you clap for a wedding built on both. No one moved, no one breathed. Enjoy the ceremony, I said. I've already lived it. And with that, I walked out into the rain, into freedom, into the ache that follows truth. Outside, thunder rolled like applause from the heavens. I walked through puddles, each step heavier than the last. My coat was soaked through, but I didn't care. For the first time in 11 years, I wasn't hiding. Behind me, the doors burst open, footsteps frantic, echoing, Lily's voice calling my name. Wait, please. I stopped, didn't turn, couldn't. You can't just leave like this, she cried. I lost everything. So did I said softly. Difference is, I never lied about it. She came closer, tears mixing with rain, mascara bleeding into the white fabric of her dress. I was scared. Okay, so was I said. But fear doesn't justify betrayal. She sobbed, falling to her knees in the mud, hands clutching the hem of my coat. I was just a kid. And now I asked, what's your excuse now? Her silence answered for her. In the distance, the church bells began to ring again, hollow, out of tune. It sounded less like celebration, more like mourning. Lily looked up, trembling. I don't know how to fix this. You don't, I said gently. You live with it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the old letter, the original, crumpled, rain-soaked, fragile. I kept it, she whispered. Then you knew all along, I said, and you let me suffer anyway. I thought I could bury it. Truth doesn't die, I said. It just waits for an invitation. She broke down completely, then sobbing, shaking, the dress that once symbolized purity, now heavy with mud. And I just stood there, watching the rain wash everything away, makeup, lies, years. I wanted to feel triumph. I didn't, only emptiness like the storm had carved a hole where my heart used to be. Finally, I bent down and took the letter from her trembling hands. It was barely legible now, words blurred, ink running like blood, but I didn't need to read it. I already knew every line. I tore it in half, then in half again. And, for a moment, I thought I saw Mom's reflection in a puddle smiling, quiet, forgiving. Lily whispered, "Will you ever forgive me?" I looked at her, the sister I once adored, the woman who became my ghostwriter in hell. Maybe, I said, but not today. Then I turned and walked away, the rain following me like applause for a tragedy finally ending. By the time I reached the bus station, my phone was buzzing with messages, news alerts, gossip threads. Someone had filmed the whole thing. It was already online. The headline read, "Groom walks out after bride's family secret revealed mid-ceremony." I didn't click it. I didn't need to relive it again. I just sat there, watching the rain trace paths down the glass, and whispered, "She wanted truth. She got it." And then, for the first time in 11 years, I laughed. Not out of joy, but out of the strange, aching relief that comes from finally running out of things to hide. The internet doesn't sleep, and it never forgives. By the time I reached the next city, the video had already gone viral. The clip was only 47 seconds long, shaky, filmed on someone's phone, but crystal clear where it mattered. The bride, the brother, the truth. The title varied depending on who posted it. The wedding that ended in confession, sister's secret exposed. After 11 years, the brother who returned. It didn't matter what they called it. It was all the same story. Our story. By morning, millions had seen it. By noon, my name was trending, though most didn't even know who I was. Someone called me the quiet witness. Someone else called me the man who didn't yell. I didn't correct them. Let them mythologize me if they needed to. After all, myths hurt less than memories. My phone was full of messages I didn't want to read. Friends I hadn't heard from in years suddenly checking in. Journalists asking for statements. Even a few strangers sending money through donation links I never created. And then there was one message that froze me. "Dad, where are you?" I stared at it for a long time, then typed 3 words, "Outside your silence," and hit send. Days blurred together after that. Every headline was another echo of that moment in the church. Journalist Lily West under investigation after viral wedding confession. Sponsors drop TV deal with Lily West amid controversy. Exposed. The man behind the letter. The irony wasn't lost on me. The girl who once built a career on exposing lies had finally been exposed by the one she told. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I didn't speak. Revenge was already doing its job, quiet, efficient, and merciless. One afternoon, while I was sitting in a cafe by the river, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Is this Erin?" Her voice was barely a whisper, cracked and fragile. "Lily." I didn't say anything. "Please," she continued, "I don't know who else to call." "You have thousands of followers," I said coldly. "Try them." "They all left," she whispered. "After the video, no one wants to touch me. My company fired me. Daniel's gone. Dad won't answer my calls." "You sound surprised," I said. "Truth burns bridges. I warned you." There was a long silence. Then, quietly, "I deserve this, don't I?" "It's not about what you deserve," I said. "It's about balance." She started crying, not the performative kind, the kind that sounds like a confession. "I didn't know how to fix it," she said, "so I built a life pretending it never happened." "You built it on my ashes," I said softly. "I know," she whispered, and it finally collapsed. I didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say that time hadn't already spoken. The call ended quietly, no goodbye, no resolution, just 2 broken voices drifting apart again. That night, I walked along the river until sunrise. The city lights shimmered on the surface like reflections of people pretending to be whole. I passed a street musician playing a slow violin piece, haunting, mournful, the kind of music that doesn't need lyrics to sound like regret. When I returned home, there was a letter slipped under my door. No name, no return address, just my first name written in familiar handwriting. Inside was a note and a photo. The note read, "I told the world the truth. On record, I said your name. They know now. You were innocent. It won't undo what I did, but maybe it can unchain you." The photo was of her standing outside the police station, reporters flashing cameras as she spoke into a microphone. Her face looked older, tired, but calm. In the photo, she wasn't the liar anymore. She was the one finally paying the debt. For a moment, I felt something I hadn't in years: gratitude, not for her redemption, but for the symmetry. Because in the end, truth had cost her everything it had cost me, and maybe that was the only justice that ever existed. The next morning, I saw the news. Lily West resigns from journalism, issues public apology, brother wrongly accused found innocent, a decade-long family lie finally ends. And, below the headline, a quote from her interview: "My brother didn't ruin me. My fear did." The comments were brutal. Some forgave her. Most didn't. But I didn't read them all. I just closed the laptop, stared out the window, and let silence settle over me like snowfall. Because finally it was over. That afternoon, I drove back to our old neighborhood. The grocery store was still gone, but the bench outside remained. I sat there for a long while, listening to the wind. It didn't sound angry anymore, just tired. A little boy walked past holding his sister's hand, laughing. I smiled. It reminded me of us before all the noise. At dusk, I stopped by the cemetery. Mom's grave was simple white marble, faintly weathered by time. Someone had left fresh flowers there, probably Lily. I placed my letter beside them, the torn one, reassembled and sealed again, the last piece of the story. "We're even now," I whispered. "You can rest." I stood there until the sun dipped below the trees, turning the sky the color of forgiveness. That night, as I walked back to the car, I heard footsteps behind me, soft, hesitant. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. "You came," she said quietly. "So did you." She stood beside me, dressed simply, no makeup, no mask, no spotlight, just Lily. We didn't talk for a while. We didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't the enemy anymore. Finally, she said, "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "I just finally stopped loving the version of you that hurt me." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I can live with that." "Good," I said softly, "because now, maybe we both can." We stood there until it started raining again, light, forgiving rain, the kind that washes away everything without asking permission. She turned to leave. "Goodbye, Aaron." "Not goodbye," I said. "Just finally, enough." As she walked away, I looked at the horizon, gray sky, soft rain, distant bells ringing from the church we'd both destroyed, and I realized something. Revenge had never been about winning. It was about ending the war inside myself. When I got home that night, I deleted the video from my phone, not out of mercy, out of peace. Because the world already knew the truth, and for the first time in 11 years, so did I. Justice, I whispered to the empty room, doesn't always punish. Sometimes it just lets go. It's strange how quiet life becomes once the noise is gone. No headlines, no calls, no apologies left to read. Just silence, thick, patient, honest. I moved into a smaller apartment near the edge of the city. It wasn't much, one bedroom, creaky floors, the faint smell of rain that never left the walls. But it was mine, and more importantly, it was quiet. I filled it with plants, books, nothing that reminded me of her or of who I used to be. For years, I'd defined myself as the wronged brother, the exile. Now I wasn't sure who I was without the war. In the mornings, I made coffee and watched people through the window, a couple arguing gently, an old man feeding pigeons, a mother walking her daughter to school. Ordinary life, something I'd forgotten existed. I realized revenge doesn't make you special, it just returns you to ordinary, and ordinary, after pain, Feels like heaven. Some nights I still dreamed of that church, the sound of rain against stained glass, the moment her face changed when she saw me. But in the dream now, she doesn't cry. She just looks at me and smiles like she finally understands. Maybe that's how healing works. It rewrites your memories, one dream at a time. Weeks passed. I started writing again. Not stories, just thoughts. Half sentences, unfinished lines. A way to empty what was left inside. Silence, I wrote once, isn't punishment. It's the sound of peace returning. Another time. Truth may free you, but it doesn't promise company. And finally, you can't rebuild where you refuse to acknowledge the ruins. Every morning, I checked the mail expecting another letter from Lily, but none came. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to say. Maybe that was mercy. Then one day, an envelope did arrive. No return address again. Inside was a photo, her sitting by Mom's grave, holding a single lily. No note, no words. Just the image of her head bowed, eyes closed, like a prayer. I stared at it for a long time, then pinned it to the wall beside my desk. Not as a memory, as proof that even guilt can bloom into grace. That evening, I visited the river again. Same cafe, same bench. The street musician was still there, playing the same melody I'd heard weeks ago. This time, I didn't feel haunted, just calm. I dropped a folded bill into his violin case. He looked up and smiled. "You look lighter," he said. "I am," I replied. "Truth has weight." I finally set it down. On the walk home, I passed a group of wedding guests outside a new chapel, laughing, taking photos. The sound used to hurt me. Now it just sounded human. I watched for a moment, a bride in a white dress laughing freely, no secrets behind her smile. For a second, I thought of Lily again. Then I whispered, "I hope she finds peace too." When I got home, I opened the windows. The city air was heavy with the scent of rain and street food, real, unpretentious life. I poured a glass of wine, turned on some old jazz, and sat by the window. No ghosts, no regrets, just the sound of the world existing without my permission. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. An unknown number again. I hesitated, then answered. It was Dad. His voice was older, slower, softer. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, "but I thought you should know. I'm proud of you." For a second, I forgot how to breathe. "Why now?" I asked quietly. Because it took me 11 years to realize strength isn't about silence. "What about her?" He paused. "She's getting help, therapy, maybe church. She says you saved her life." I wasn't trying to. "Maybe that's why it worked," he said, and then hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone, until the city outside turned gray with dawn. Then I smiled, not out of happiness, but out of closure, the kind that doesn't need witnesses. I walked to the kitchen, made another cup of coffee, and looked at the photo on my wall, Lily by the grave, head bowed. For the first time, I whispered something I never thought I would. "I forgive you." The words felt foreign, fragile, but real. They didn't erase the past. They just stopped it from hurting. That night, I wrote one last entry in my notebook. Revenge ended the lie. Forgiveness ended the noise. Then I closed it, placed it in a drawer, and turned off the light. Outside, the rain started again, soft, steady, familiar. The kind of rain that doesn't demand attention, it just falls. And somewhere between one drop and the next, I realized I wasn't the brother who lost everything anymore. I was the man who finally had nothing left to prove. It had been 6 months since the wedding. 6 months since the truth tore through the fabric of everything I thought I'd lost and somehow stitched me back together. The world had stopped talking about it. That's how stories die now, not from silence, but from distraction, new scandals, new tragedies. But this one, my story, had already done its job. It had turned pain into balance. I'd changed, quietly. I'd gone from surviving to living something I didn't realize were two different things. My days became simple: coffee in the morning, work at the auto design lab, evenings reading by the window, peaceful repetition, the opposite of what my life used to be. Sometimes, simplicity is the only luxury truth can buy. One Saturday morning, I got an unexpected message. It wasn't from Lily. It was from Daniel, her ex-fiancé. "I saw your interview. You handled it with grace. I wish I had too." Attached was a short video link, an online talk show segment. The thumbnail showed Lily sitting across from a host, visibly changed. No makeup, no performance, no mask. I hesitated before pressing play. The clip began mid-conversation. "So," the host said gently, "after everything, what did you learn from it?" Lily looked down, twisting her hands in her lap. "That truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just gives you back the cage you built yourself." She paused. "But if you face it long enough, you start to realize cages have doors." Her voice cracked a little. "My brother showed me that. He didn't come back to ruin me. He came back to remind me I'd already ruined myself." The host leaned forward. "Have you spoken since?" "No," she said softly. "But I think about him every day. And every time I do, I remember what truth costs." I stopped the video halfway. That was enough. Because sometimes, peace isn't hearing "I'm sorry." It's hearing that they finally understood why they needed to be. That evening, I drove back to the town I once called home. The road was lined with golden leaves, wind whispering through them like applause from ghosts. Everything looked smaller, quieter, the way childhood always does when you return as an adult. The old grocery store was now a cafe. I walked in out of curiosity. The air smelled like roasted beans and nostalgia. Behind the counter, a young barista smiled. "What can I get you?" "Just a black coffee," I said. As she poured it, she glanced at my name on the card I handed her. "Aaron Marlowe," she read aloud. "Are you?" I smiled faintly. "Used to be." She laughed softly, unsure what that meant. I sat near the window, the same place I used to sit as a boy, waiting for Lily to finish chatting with customers. Now, strangers occupied the space where our laughter used to live. But instead of sadness, I felt gratitude, because life had moved on and I had too. Outside, across the street, the church bells rang again. Different wedding, different people, different lives. And yet the same melody. I took a sip of coffee and whispered to the sound. "Let them keep their tables. I built my own." As I walked out, something caught my eye near the bulletin board by the door. A photo. It was a flyer for a charity group called the Lily Foundation, support for victims of false accusations. Below it was a tagline in small letters, founded by journalist Lily West. And, next to it, in even smaller text, inspired by forgiveness. I stood there for a long time, reading those words. The world really does find symmetry when you stop demanding it. That night, I visited Mom's grave again. The same quiet spot under the elm tree. The air smelled of wet grass and spring renewal. Someone had left fresh lilies again. I didn't need to guess who. I knelt, brushed the leaves aside, and whispered, "She's trying. Mom, she's really trying." The wind stirred softly, and for a second, I swear I heard her voice not in words, but in warmth, the kind that wraps around you like forgiveness itself. When I got home, I opened my old notebook, the one filled with scattered thoughts from the months before. I turned to a blank page and wrote, Revenge is loud, healing is quiet. She lost her name but found her soul. I lost my pain and found myself. Then I added one final line. We both won, just not the way we expected. The next morning, I mailed a small package. Inside a copy of that page, folded neatly, with a note attached. No return address, no signature, just peace. Weeks later, I received a single text from an unknown number. Thank you. No name, but I didn't need one. Because closure doesn't always come with confirmation. Sometimes, it's enough to know the echo reached the right heart. The following Sunday, I stood at my window as the sun rose over the city. Light spilled across the floorboards, soft and golden, chasing away the shadows that had lived there too long. I made coffee, opened the window, and smiled. The air smelled like new beginnings, warm, alive, and forgiving. Good morning, I whispered to no one and everyone. Because at that moment, I realized something beautiful. I wasn't defined by what I'd lost, but by what I refused to become. Some endings don't echo, they dissolve. Not with applause, not with regret, just quiet acceptance. It's been a year since that day. A year since I walked back into a church and said the one thing no one wanted to hear the truth. A year since I watched everything burn down, just so something honest could grow again. Life now is simple. Not perfect, but mine. I still make coffee the same way every morning, still water the plants by the window, still carry silence like an old, familiar song. Sometimes, I see Lily's name pop up in articles again, not for scandal, but for change. Her foundation is helping people who've been misjudged, misunderstood, or mislabeled. She's doing good things now. And every time I read her name, I don't feel bitterness. I feel distance, the healthy kind. Because forgiveness doesn't mean reunion, it just means freedom. I never went back to that town for good, but every year on Mom's birthday, I visit, I bring lilies, I sit under that elm tree, and I talk. Not to the past, but to the boy I used to be, the one who believed love and loyalty were the same thing. They're not. Loyalty without truth is just fear wearing a halo, and love without honesty is a kindness that kills. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did exposing her on her wedding day, letting the world see her truth, and I always say the same thing. No, because silence was killing both of us. Someone had to speak. But the real secret, it was never about revenge. It was about release. I didn't ruin her life. I ended the lie that was ruining mine. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the outcast. I see the man who survived being forgotten and came back not to be remembered, but to remind himself he still exists. The scar is still there, faint and pale, but scars are just proof that healing was real. Last night, I sat at my table, the small one by the window, and poured 2 cups of coffee, one for me, one for the memory of the person I used to chase forgiveness from. I raised my cup to the empty chair and said quietly, "We're good." And in that silence, I swear I heard something answer, not words, just warmth. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was peace finally coming home. The truth is, I don't need her apology anymore, because I've already lived the redemption part for both of us. And if there's anything I've learned, it's this: life doesn't give you closure. You give it to yourself, one breath, one step, one truth at a time. When people ask me how it feels to forgive, I tell them this. It feels like putting down a bag of stones you've been carrying for years and realizing you were the one who filled it. Tonight, before I sleep, I'll write one final line in my notebook, the same one that's carried this whole journey. Truth is heavy, forgiveness is weightless. Then I'll close it, blow out the candle, and let the darkness rest not as an enemy, but as proof the light came back. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, someone who made you question your own worth, remember this. You don't need them to fix the story. You just need to finish your own chapter. Forgive, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. And when the world tells you to keep the past buried, smile, look them in the eye, and whisper, "I buried the pain, not the lesson." Because in the end, the sweetest revenge is peace.